A perfect example today of the hypocrisy of Labor's claims that we must have a voice, kind of Aboriginal-only parliament, because we must listen to Aborigines on the ground. Well, today, Labor had its chance. 22 Aborigines did come to Parliament from Queensland, New South Wales, the ACT, from as far away as Arnhem Land to say what they thought about the voice. They're actually against. They don't want us to be divided by race, which is an important insight. But not one Labor MP, not one Labor minister would listen to them. Not one. But this group did meet the opposition leader, the Nationals leader, Independent Jacqui Lambie too, who have been warming towards actually. The politician who brought in this group was the National Senator Jacinta Nampijinpa, who again attacked the voice.
No, I think the bureaucracies that currently exist need to do a better job. This is a Trojan horse. There are ulterior motives, and as Indigenous Australians with Indigenous heritage in this country, we don't want to be divided. We simply don't want to be divided along the lines of race.
Warren Mundine, head of one of the No campaign groups, was also there today and made a good point.
I spend most of my time now flying around the country out of my own pocket because I believe in this campaign. And in every community I've been in, whether it be black or white, most people don't even know what the voice is. They don't know. In the Aboriginal community, Stan Grant, it's still on ABC's line, wrote an article about how he brought 200 members of his family together at Warren Gester. And he said the biggest voices, the biggest number of people there didn't even know about the voice. And that's in his own family.
In fact, the government's plans for the voice are in trouble, and not just because it's racist and support is falling. You remember the Prime Minister saying last year he would put to us a very simple and safe question at a referendum this year, and this is the key part of it.
The Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice may make representations to Parliament and the executive government on matters relating to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples.
Problem is, Albanese's government has finally worked out the question is actually so dangerous that Attorney General Mark Dreyfus last week tried to convince the government's Aboriginal-only referendum working group to add some extra words to stop judges from saying the government can't act until the voice was consulted, which would really gum up government. Dreyfus suggested that the new words be added to Albanese's question so Parliament could restrict the voice should be something like, it would limit the legal effect. Parliament would limit the legal effect of its representations. After all, why should an unelected Aboriginal Parliament, representing just 3% of the population, be able to hold up the Parliament and the government elected by us all, Aborigines included? But the working group last week said no. I mean, the government's actually desperate for a deal this month. Well, just an hour or so ago, there's been an apparent breakthrough. They have apparently made some compromise, or maybe they haven't, on the final wording, which will be unveiled tomorrow. Now, this could go anywhere. If the government does put in some form of those extra words, Aboriginal radicals are going to attack the voice even harder as a sellout. And if the government gives in, the voice will be so dangerous that, well, who's going to vote for it? But you know what's so frustrating about all of this, beyond the fact that Labor is trying to divide us forever by race? Is that this whole circus around the voice is diverting a generation of Aboriginal leaders who should instead be fixing what's broken now. And what is so broken is parts of the culture in too many communities out bush. It breaks your heart. I'll give you the latest example, how ideology is blinding people to this unfolding disaster. I told you a couple of days ago how a 19-year-old, Declan Laverty, was stabbed at a bottle shop in Darwin when he refused service to another teenager, a boy already in bail, allegedly with a couple of younger boys with him. Declan had just time to send his dad one last text, "Love you, I've been stabbed," before he died. It's a ghastly tragedy. But here's how the Northern Territory's Chief Minister from Labor's hard left responded when asked about it in the Legislative Assembly, by making cheap political attacks.
Will you admit to Territorians that you have failed to listen and finally take action.
Thank you, Member for Berkeley. Chief Minister, you have the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and that was a very strong question from the potential leader of the opposition there. Good leadership style there, Member for Berkeley.
A bit of grief and some tears might have been more appropriate, but this is an ideologue who sat on her hands as violence and drunkenness in Alice Springs spiralled out of control. A truck driver last week hit with a rock and will probably lose his eye. A generation of children in some of these communities is being lost. Yet all we hear from the Aboriginal aristocracy is voice, 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 voice. But if you listen hard enough, you will hear Aboriginal voices from the bush, from the ground, saying, don't divide us by race. Just do your job and help us. If only Labor and that Aboriginal aristocracy would listen.